Today's interview is with Kayla Fecik. Kayla is awesome. She lives in Rochester, New York, and this year alone has managed to grow her portfolio to 28 doors, 16 total properties. Through finding great deals with wholesalers to using the BRRRR method to just continuously grinding and making things work. So really cool story, along with how she worked with a flipping company before that. So really cool story today. Stick around for all of that. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate. Go to the WWRE Podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review, which really helps me grow this platform and continuously give you guys great content that hopefully you guys enjoy. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. If you're interested in real estate in whatever capacity that is, I'd love to have that conversation with you, see if there's any way I can help you. So go to the link in the description down below, or go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com and sign up there. But before all that, enjoy today's awesome interview with Kayla Fecik. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Kayla Fecik. Hey Kayla.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm very appreciative of you making time. It's when we're recording this, it's a Friday night. Kayla could be doing so much more interesting things than talking to me, but here she is, so I'm very grateful for that. So before we jump into the conversation, which, we were talking beforehand, is going to be a fun one. Do you want to give people an idea about your background, what you've been up to, and what you're kind of up to these days?
Sure. So I grew up in upstate New York. I left right after high school. I moved down to New York City, went to college for 4 years, got a degree in theater management, more or less. Yeah. Graduated from college and decided within 6 months that it was not for me. You're in the entertainment industry. It's a nights and weekends lifestyle. And I knew I wanted a family. I knew I wanted kids. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to make this work being gone 6 nights a week? And so I almost immediately started looking for something else. And I had no idea what that was going to be. And I had always had an interest in real estate, but I had never really thought it was realistic. So I started doing research. I started looking into the licensing laws, and I was like, this is not that hard. I can do this. So I bought a book and I started studying, and a month later I had my real estate license. And then I joined a brokerage and I had no idea what I was doing. So I just showed up to the office every day with nothing to do, just figured out something to do that day. So I would call the rental ads in the newspaper and ask if they needed help re-renting their apartments, or I would learn how to do comparative market analysis that day, or, just saw what some of the bigger agents were doing and tried to do what they were doing that day. And eventually I got hooked up with a real estate investing company in the suburbs of New York City, and they were flipping houses. So I started with them as a real estate agent. And then I moved into doing some bookkeeping for them. And then I moved into doing some property management for them. Eventually I was doing project management. And then eventually I became their operations manager. So I flipped a whole bunch of houses with them in the suburbs of New York City, in Southern Connecticut, that sort of area. And then I was really itching to kind of branch out on my own, do my own thing, but I couldn't figure out how to make that work. So eventually I decided to move back to upstate New York, where I'm from, and start to buy my own rental properties. So that's what I'm doing now. My husband and I both work full-time in our rental property business now. Over the last 12 months, we've bought, 26 units with 2 under contract. So that's where we're at now. We're looking at 2 more properties tomorrow and taking it from there.
Wow. Yeah, you guys aren't messing around. That's some growth in 12 months. That's really cool. But we'll talk about that in a second. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. So you went into theater management to start off with. What made you want to go and do that? you think?
I had done theater all through high school. I was, the stage manager for all of my high school theater shows, and I had always loved it, and I was good at it. And when you're 17, 16, figuring out what you want to do with your life, everyone's like, what do you like to do? What's your passion? Nobody tells you to think about what you want your lifestyle to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's more important, because the way we make money is just a vehicle to get us to the lifestyle that we want. So now whenever I get a chance to talk to, I have younger brothers, younger cousins, or just anybody in that, late teenage range, I always ask them, what lifestyle do you want? Do you want to travel? Do you want stability? What do you want to do? So yeah, theater was just not that for me. It's just not the lifestyle for me. I have so many amazing friends that are still in the industry, and I love the industry still, but it just didn't give me the lifestyle that I wanted.
Wow, that's really cool. That's a great piece of advice, and for anyone listening, like you really can take that on board, right? Because I'm huge on that myself, right? In general, you just designing the life that you want for yourself, right? You literally can design the life that you want, like figure out what you want your life to be and design it around that, right? And that's why I love real estate so much, because you can create whatever you want from it, right? You want whatever you want your life to look like, you can kind of create that through real estate. I think that's good. But I think, again, like you said, for younger people, like I was the same way. I didn't know what I wanted to do 16, 17, 18, probably 21, 22, 23 even. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But if you can figure out what you want your life to look like, well, then it's easier to, you don't always need to do what you love and what you kind of enjoy, right? You can, if you build a lifestyle for yourself, I think you'll enjoy that more than necessarily just wanting to do something that you like. So that's really cool. And definitely with entertainment, it's a tough business, right? I know I've been in it for a while now. It's a tough business to kind of, late nights, and you got to work when you don't want to all the time. You don't have much, you don't have a choice a lot of times, right? It always clashes with not like normal life is what I call it, right? We work weekends, like you can't go to weddings, all that stuff. Yeah. So I always say you made the right choice in some degree to kind of, especially right now, right? You don't want to be in entertainment right now with December 18th, I think we are today. Yeah, and I haven't worked since March 9th, so entertainment.
I know.
Yeah,
I have a lot of friends in the same situation.
Yeah, New York is tough as well. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Then, though, you decided to go. You think, okay, I think I could be a real estate agent. But you passed you learned in a month. I know a lot of people. It takes them a lot of time to. My wife's an agent here in Vegas, and it definitely took her longer than a month, and she was pretty good about it. Did you just have a natural knack for it? Did you have?
I went full head on into it. I did the class in 2 weeks full time in New York City. I was lucky enough to take it in person, which I'm a very visual learner, and I had a really great teacher. So I learned it all in 2 weeks. I studied for a week, and then I took the test immediately because I didn't want to forget anything. So
smart. Yeah, that's smart, right?
So ready to get going. I didn't want to mess around.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is with a lot of people as well, is that you were single-minded in what you wanted to achieve, and you knew that you wanted to do it. I think a lot of people, when they talk about real estate, and you hear people that's taking them a year to pass their exam, right, and they're still trying it sometimes. I think it's that they're not fully committed, right, and they just like, oh yeah, real estate can be cool. I can make some money doing real estate. I can sell real estate, but they're not that. They haven't decided, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is definitely what I'm doing. I'm going to do it no matter what. And obviously, it seems like that's what you did. Even then, when you said like, you didn't know what to do to start off with, so you went to work, right? And then you see what.
I mean, at that point, I had nothing to lose. I was completely making 100% change of direction. So I figured, if I'm going to change directions, I'm going to move 100% in this direction. And then if I don't like it, I haven't lost anything. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to move 100% in a different direction. Yeah. So that's what I did.
Looking back now at that time, if you'd have done something different, maybe it's for some newer agents that are listening, how would you have done anything different in terms of how you started out? Obviously the commitment was great, but in terms of strategy, would you have done anything different, you think?
Yeah. So, nobody tells you when you go to get your real estate license that the class in real estate it has nothing to do with being a real estate agent. And I've heard this over and over from so many realtors. I'm sure your wife can say, can speak to the same thing. But I would just start talking to practicing realtors immediately when I got the idea. I would go to a brokerage right away. They'll talk to you. I worked with some amazing mentors in the beginning that didn't have to spend their time with me, but they did. and they got nothing out of it other than, just helping a new agent. So I would just immediately start reaching out to those people, because studying for that exam is important and passing that exam is important. But once you pass, you've really only scratched the surface of what you're going to need to know to really be in the real estate industry.
Yeah, my wife said the same. Like, you can almost forget everything that you learned. You just needed to pass the test, the exam, and everything else after that. That's when you really start learning, right? It's when you're on the job.
Exactly. Yeah, I tell people the real estate class is how not to get sued 101. That's pretty much what you learn, is all the laws and what you can say and can't say, and can and can't do, but not what you do every day. What do you actually do? No, it doesn't teach you that.
Yeah. You touch on a great point there, is finding mentors, right? Finding people that can help you and help guide you, right? And that's not only just on the agent side, right? That's a great piece of advice generally in whatever you're trying to do, but especially in real estate, right? Investing, you can find mentors and people that can help guide you. But there's a certain way that you need to go about it, I think, right? You're not just like, taking people's time. How did you go about it? How did you, manage? Because also I think like people are willing to help, but they're only willing to help people that they see want to be helped and not doing, what I mean? There's a certain way you got to go about it.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
I mean, the first thing that I decided to do is, real estate is not a hobby, it's a job. And so I showed up at the office every morning dressed for business at 9 a.m. And I got on my computer and I tried to figure out what was going on. I tried to log into the systems and, play around with those types of things. And then I asked if anybody needed help. Does anybody need a showing agent, someone just to go open doors? Does anybody need somebody to run a comparative analysis on a property? Do you need someone to hold an open house? Do you need someone to put signs out? Whatever somebody needed, I wanted to do it. I wanted to learn. I wanted to just be involved at that time. And that all relates to being a real estate agent, but I think you can so easily translate that to being a real estate investor. Does anybody need help putting signs out for finding wholesale properties? Does anyone need somebody to answer the phone? Maybe they're going away on vacation and they don't want to answer their, wholesale leads that are coming in. You can just at least take a message. Does anyone need someone to do re-rents for them, helping place new tenants? I mean, make yourself valuable is the best thing that I can say. If you're trying to find a mentor, it's got to be a give and take. These people are busy, they have a lot going on, but there's always some way, even if you know nothing from the beginning, you can make yourself valuable to them so that they want to help you.
Yeah, that's huge. And I love what you said there as well. It's not saying, hey, how can I help you? You were making suggestions, right? Because I heard a number of people saying that, like, they get people coming up to them and say, hey, how can I help you?
And that's just giving someone another problem they have to figure out. They're like, I don't know, I'm busy. I don't know how you can help me. But if you say, hey, I see you're placing, 10 signs a week. Can I do that for you so you don't have to? Now you've got an actionable item that you could take off of their plate.
Yeah, that piece of advice is just phenomenal. They're just not only in the help, but in figuring out a problem that they might have and trying to help solve that, right? Because then those people, you're helping solve a problem for them. They're going to, they see you're serious. They see you're doing all these things, and they're going to look at you differently, right? Rather than someone says, hey, can I get some advice, or can you help me, right? It's way different, right? Way different. And it's that reciprocity thing, right? Where, you both kind of win in that situation. So I think that's huge. But then you went to work for a flipping company, right? How did that come about? Was that?
Yeah, so they were, the flipping company that I was working with at the time, they were looking for somebody to rent a property in my area. So they called my office and they asked for the youngest, hungriest agent that was in the office. And the woman at the front desk immediately gave them to me. And I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. And she said, it's okay, I'm going to help you through it. I said, okay. I had my license for 2 weeks at that point.
Oh, wow.
So she, got me all set to go and sent me off. And I re-rented that property for them in, I think, like a week and a half. And then they had a project that was going on in my area. And the area is big down there. I know you've traveled a lot. So they were in New York City. I was up in Orange County, New York. So it's about an hour and a half apart. So they were flipping a house up there and they said, hey, can you just go check on the contractor every once in a while? And I said, sure, no problem. So I'd go and check on the contractor. And then it was one thing after another. The contractor needed some materials. Can you just run to Home Depot? Sure, I can run to Home Depot. I'm a brand new agent. I have nothing going on. So I just kind of made myself useful and then started taking on more and more responsibility with them until I was eventually full-time with them.
Wow, that's cool. like, yeah, that hunger and that drive that you have is apparent, right? Because most people, an hour and a half, I'm not driving an hour and a half to check a contractor, like for people I kind of don't know, but you kept saying yes, and you kept saying, not just yes, absolutely, I'll do it, no problem. Like, you know what I mean? And I think again, that shines, like, that's just an example to people what can happen when you're willing to sort of work hard and kind of show that hunger and that determination. Where do you think that hunger came from for you? Because everyone, I think, you know what I mean? I think you have a determination and a work ethic that, that it isn't always there for everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think my most valuable skill set is just creative problem solving. So I like to just work through problems. Something comes up and I just look at it as an opportunity to get to the other side of it. And I don't know specifically where it came from, but I just think, they say if real estate investing was easy, everyone would do it, right? And then there would be no space for us to get into it. So to me, doing something challenging and knowing that I'm, good enough to be there and to be in the circle and to work through those issues, that just gives me a big sense of gratification.
Yeah. I'm sure that was a good fit for what you're doing now, right? Working with them, the flippers, because then you understand the rehab side of things, right? And also the investing side of things as well. But
yeah, I was lucky enough that eventually I was running the underwriting portion of the company and also the construction portion of the company. So I was underwriting every deal that came through the door and figuring out what our maximum offer price was for it. And then I also, the property came back into my court after we bought it. And then I would come up with a scope of work and manage the contractors all the way to listing it, staging it, and selling it at the end of the project. So I learned a ton with them.
yes, I would say so too. What are some of the things you learned in terms of analyzing, right? So these were all flips, right? How were you analyzing one? What are some quick tips maybe people can learn from what you learned?
Yeah, so the biggest thing about analyzing is not to create a decision point for yourself every time a property comes across your desk. And what I mean by that is to decide what your numbers are ahead of time, decide how you're going to figure those numbers out. So create a spreadsheet or a calculator for yourself or some system that you're going to plug that into. And then it's going to either meet your criteria or it's not going to meet your criteria, because I think a lot of brand new investors are so eager to get started that first property comes across their desk and maybe it's not quite right and maybe it's not really the best buy, but they want to buy something, and you're creating that decision point that can lead you into maybe not the best decision for you. So if you decide exactly what your numbers are and exactly what your threshold is ahead of time, there's no decision point. Either it's within your threshold or it's not, and then you can just go from there.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, because it just becomes clear then, right? Like if you have a criteria, this is my criteria, A, B, C, and if it's none of those, right, obviously there is no decision, right? You don't have, like you said, you don't come to that decision point. Either meets it or it don't. It doesn't. So yeah, I love that. And then also like handling you must have been working a lot then, right? If you're doing that, and then you're also handling not just like kind of handling the contract, very involved in every aspect of the rehab side of things.
Yes, I was lucky in that I was 21 when I met them, and I was just willing to do whatever it took to get the experience and get the knowledge and learn and work with them. So I was working most days of the week. But it was fun. I love real estate. I love the challenges that come up. I love solving them. So I was working a lot, but it didn't feel like working a lot,
Yeah, no, that's what it is, right? Real estate for a lot of us is fun, right? It's fun, like for me to be talking to you here today, like, you know what I mean? And just talking about real estate and just doing it, right? It's fun. It's like exciting to me, real estate. So I think that's what shines through with so many people that are successful and that are involved in real estate. It's just how much they love it and how much fun it is. What again, but to share to people, I'm sure again you learn a ton, right, about dealing with contractors, handling that scope of work. What are some stuff that you off the top of your head maybe that you've learned and can share with people at that point?
Yeah, I think, and my husband is so gonna laugh when he hears this because this is so his domain and not mine, but systems are everything. So if you're going in to develop a scope of work, just having what's your system for developing the scope of work. So we have a form that lists, every room in the property and every element of construction for that room. So all I have to do is is go down the list on that form. You know, what are we doing in electrical in the bathroom? Check. What am I doing in plumbing in the bathroom? Check. It's not just going through with a blank sheet of paper and hoping you remember everything that you need to go over.
Yeah.
The same thing with underwriting. We have a calculator in Excel. We use the same calculator for every property. We plug it in, and we have a certain max value of after repair value that we will buy up to. And we have a minimum cash flow number that's different for multifamilies and single families. So it either meets those metrics or it doesn't. Everything that you can systematize it makes your life so much easier, and it makes your work so much quicker and more efficient. Yeah, I did not realize that early on, and I was working maybe harder, not smarter. So just, creating those systems, which I think my husband and I make a very good team, because he's very system driven and very, he has an IT background. So he's very focused on the fine details, where I'm just, go, 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 what's the next thing all the time. Yeah, so we bring good balance to each other that way.
Yeah, and it's like you said, right? It's time for one thing, right? So when you have these systems, you don't want to look at every deal, right? If it doesn't make sense, you don't want to spend 2 hours on a deal only to realize like, oh, this is not even close to what I'm looking for, right? And at the same time, there's human nature is we're going to forget stuff, right? Especially when you're really busy, there's so many things going through your mind. So if you're trying to, like you said, go through a property and go through the scope of work, if you haven't systematized that, right? So what does the bathroom need? What does the kitchen need? What does the living room need? What kind of paint are we using? If you don't have that systematized, it's so easy for you to miss stuff, right? Because you might get distracted by something. So I think, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm not good at it myself either. And neither is my wife. And thought I need to marry someone different maybe than someone. Find someone to do that. Or maybe just find a partner instead of divorcing my wife. Maybe.
There you go. Yeah, that might be better.
I want to make sure my wife doesn't listen to this episode. But that's cool. So then you developed these skills, and do you still work for that company, or are you just full-time in your own business now?
No, since I moved to upstate New York a few years ago, now I work full-time in my own business.
Okay, so did you leave that business for geography reasons, because you wanted to live in a different area, or did you decide that you wanted to invest yourself and create your own portfolio?
I really, it was twofold. My family is all in upstate New York. I'm the oldest sibling in my family, so I really wanted to be closer to my family again. I was spending all of my vacation time just traveling home. So I thought maybe if I live where my family is, then I could spend my vacation time going somewhere else. And the other thing was I really wanted to get into rentals. The more I read, the more I learned, the more I saw, the more I realized that the key to long-term wealth and building and not having to constantly be turning properties is rental property for me. So I wanted to get started on my own, and I just thought, for me, upstate New York, the numbers just work better for rentals.
Yeah, and so you, in a year's time, how many rentals do you say you have now?
We have 26 units.
You have that many that you do. You guys are.
You know what? My husband is the number. Sorry, 28. I'm wrong. Okay. We have 28 units. My husband knows the numbers so much better than I do. Yeah,
don't miss collecting rents on those extra 2 years, because you're. That's great. That's quite unbelievable, actually, to have grown that much. How are you guys doing it? How did you buy? Maybe talk us through that first one, and then we'll roll from there to the other ones.
So my first property was a single family property. I got passed the lead from a wholesaler in the market. He passed me the lead, and he passed me a list of private money lenders, and he said, call them up and figure it out.
Wow.
Okay. So I started calling down the list. I think it took me 5 phone calls until I finally found somebody that would fund it for me. And they funded it. I closed. The tenants were long-term tenants. They are great. They never call for anything. They're our best tenants ever. So I think maybe I had a little bit of a beginner's bias there. But I got through the first one, and I moved on to the next one. And the next one was a 3-pack of properties. So we bought 3 properties all at the same time.
Oh, wow. Sorry, let's go back to that first one initially. Just so you started talking to a wholesaler, right? And to people who don't know, a wholesaler is someone that finds deals. They're usually distressed deals that find people that need to sell for whatever reason, and they're selling way below what the property is worth. But there's some work involved. There's some kind of issue there. There's a problem that needs to be solved. And then they sell that onto investors for a small chunk of change. And then the investor owns that property that needs a problem to be solved, but there's value in that property, right? Would you say that's a good way to describe it?
Yes. Yeah. And that's how we find most of our properties.
But so on that first one though, but dealing with wholesalers can be challenging for a few different reasons. For one, when you're starting out, you don't have any track record, right? It's like anything. If you don't have that track record, it's harder to get deals from them, I think, because they need someone that's going to close, right? They have this property. Yeah. They have no intention of buying it themselves, which is fine. That's how it works. It's nothing illegal or anything. But they have no intention of buying the property. They need someone that's going to close and that's going to buy that property for them. So how do you establish that relationship to start off with that wholesaler?
Yeah, and for wholesalers, their reputation is the most important thing for them. So when they say that they're going to close on a house, they need to close. So building your reputation with them is very important. So for me, the minute I moved back up to Rochester, I started networking in the real estate space. So I started just going to meetups, calling every We Buy Houses sign, and just trying to make my name known to everybody that I was here and I was here to buy houses, and I was not gonna, mess around. I wasn't here to waste anybody's time. And just building those relationships from the very beginning. It took a few months. It took probably maybe 4 or 5 months before I actually closed on my first property. But I would, just call every once in a while. Hey, what's going on? Do you have any properties? Do you have anything, that I can look at? And then just calling every We Buy Houses sign was really important when I came back up, because that's how they find their properties. And so that's, how they make themselves visible. So I was going to use that to my advantage to make myself visible and get in contact with them. And then once I got on a bunch of lists, eventually this was a house that nobody really wanted to buy because it was way under market rent and the tenants had been there forever and it had some delayed maintenance. And so I said, I'll buy it. And I, closed on the first one, which was kind of a difficult problem property. But then that really helped to establish my credibility in the long run, I think.
Yeah. There's so many great points there. For one, it wasn't you called the first wholesaler you called a week later. He's like, here's a property for you, right? You have to prove yourself to some extent, I'm sure, to these people by calling every week or every other week, looking at deals that they're sending you, right? And, telling them why it doesn't work and whatnot, and building that relationship and that credibility with them, I think, as well, till eventually they get to the point. And as you mentioned there as well, sometimes it takes, and it's the same in multifamily, sometimes it takes buying a deal. And no, you should never buy a bad deal, but sometimes you might have to buy an okay deal just to prove yourself, right? And you've bought a deal from that wholesaler, and in multifamily you buy a deal and people know then that you've bought a deal and you've closed, and it kind of changes their perception of you then. But that first deal, you said that rent was way in the market. So what did you like about that first property, and what about it made you think that you could make it a success?
So the tenants had been there long term. They did not want to go anywhere else. The rent was covering the expenses. So it wasn't making money, but it wasn't losing money, and it's building equity and paying down its mortgage. So it was in the exact neighborhood that I was looking in, which is kind of the neighborhood that I was looking to break into in terms of the wholesalers and the different investors that were in that area. And I knew that I could at least cover my expenses and maybe make, a few dollars every month, enough to cover just a CapEx fund, more or less. Mm-hmm. And so I was happy enough just to break into the market and not be losing money every month on that property, knowing that eventually they will be ready to move on, or I'll start to raise their rent very slowly. And eventually the property, once it's turned, will be very profitable.
So the property didn't need any work whatsoever?
It has a little bit of deferred maintenance on the inside. When they leave, there will be work that needs to be done, but they don't really want anyone in there doing renovations while they live there. They're very happy there. They've been there a very long time. So if they're happy, I call them every 6 months or so and I just say, hey, do you guys need anything? No, we're good. Everything's fine. So if they're happy, I'm happy just letting them be. And, once they do decide to move on, then it will need more or less an overhaul on the interior.
Yeah. But then there's some value in that as well, right? Because I'm sure you can push rents a lot.
Yeah.
So, and you also said there that the wholesaler gave you a list of hard money lenders, right? What is a hard money lender for people who don't know?
So a hard money lender is somebody who lends money based on the real estate investment, not based on the borrower's criteria. So they're going to underwrite the property. If the property meets their conditions and they feel that the investor has enough experience to their comfort level, they will lend at significantly above consumer rates, typical homeowner rates, but you don't have to qualify for a typical bank mortgage.
Yeah, there's a lot less red tape to go through, right? They'll pretty much, if the project makes sense, they'll pretty much finance it, right? You don't have to worry about your credit score, don't have to worry about bank statements, about credit history, all that stuff, right? They'll finance it. But on the same end, you usually pay a much higher interest rate and some points up front. What do you remember what your interest rate was on that first one?
My interest rate on the first one was 12% and 2 points.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But
I was paying.
That was painful, I'm sure. But was it hard as well to get them? Because like you said, their experience, they take experience into consideration because they're lending them money. They're looking for that
so hard at the beginning. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. So how were you able to overcome that? Was it just calling plenty of them, or how did you?
Calling, and you really have to believe in yourself and move past rejection. It's hard to call and be told no. It's hard to call and ask somebody for money, maybe is the way some people think about it, but you're not really asking them for money. You're asking them to invest and to put their money to work and to, put their money to work to make a profit for them. So just changing my mindset on that and feeling really comfortable just calling. And if it wasn't the right fit for them, moving on to the next one really helped me get through that. So I did have to make, I think, 5 phone calls to different private lenders before I found somebody who would invest in the first property with me.
Yeah. Someone asked me to do a speech one day, and I don't like doing speeches and public speaking, but it was about getting into character, right? And I think it's so appropriate, especially for real estate investors. When you were talking to lenders, you had to get into a character, right? It wasn't the same person that talks to your mum and your dad or your husband, right? You had to project confidence. You had to know what you were talking about, right? You had to get into a certain character to prove to them that you were lendworthy. Is that a word?
Yeah.
What you're being lent to, right? Like you had to prove to them. And what also I like is like, you didn't take the first no, the second no, the third no, the fourth no, right? It took the 5th or 6th call, whatever it was, to get to that, right? And I hear that time and time again. And I want to highlight it because people back home, right? They might be like, oh, they told me no, they can't lend this, or this can't be done because of this. No, it might take you 10 phone calls, might take you 20, right? But I'm sure you'd still be here today making phone calls if that's what it took, right? You know what I mean? And that's what that mentality of being willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And same when you started out with being an agent, I think is key to being an investor more than anything else, more than any kind of skill set or anything else. It's that determination and the doggedness to keep going and find a way to make it work. It's just so important. And that's a skill as well. What I like about that skill is it's not hard to create, right? It's almost a habit, right? It's not something that you have to be born with, right? You can just like, okay, I know that I got to call 10 people to get a yes, maybe, right? And you just do that, right? It's the skill that you teach yourself, and over time, hopefully, it becomes ingrained in you. So, I think that's really interesting. So that first property wasn't a BRRRR or anything like that. How do you still have the hard money? What was the plan on that? Was it just to have hard money on it for?
All of our properties are BRRRR investments. Yeah. So we refinance every property that we purchase every property with hard or private money. And then we refinance them through portfolio financing or bank financing at the end.
So do you do multiple loans at the same time? Do you try and have a few properties that you can refinance, or do you tend to do them individually?
Yeah, so we're at a lower price point market where some banks won't even do individual loans at our value of property. Some will. But so we group them together, usually in groups of 4 or 5, and we refinance them in a blanket or a portfolio loan.
That's pretty cool. How much, if you don't mind me asking, how much did you pay for that first property, and how much was it worth?
Oh, my first property was, I believe, $35,000 for that first one.
Okay, and then how much did you refinance it for? How much was the value?
We refinanced that one for, I believe, 45. I should have looked up the numbers.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, just an idea.
But I believe 45. Their rent at the time was $750. The market rent for that house is probably $1,300 now.
Wow.
So yeah, I was slowly raising their rent by about $50 every 2 to 3 months. They're an older, well, I think I raised it twice. So it's at $850 now. And then the pandemic happened and I said, I'm not raising rents on anybody during a pandemic. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So they're at $850 right now and it covers itself and they never call and they're happy. So for now, I'm just going to let that one run.
But that'll be a killer deal, right? To buy it for 35, you didn't have to put anything in. We might have to put what eventually, you think 10, even if you put 10, 15 into it, right? And it
Yeah, eventually I might put about 10 into it and then it'll rent for about 1,300.
That's incredible. So that's like, yeah, that's nearly like,
yeah,
2.5%.
In the long run, that property is a good property. Yeah.
Yeah. So how much out of your 28 properties, have you been able to sort of reuse that initial capital that you had? How much, or have you able to do that for 28 times, or do you have to come
So
up?
we have 28 units. Yeah, not properties. We have 16 properties, 28 units. I don't want to mislead anybody about how quickly
still a lot. Yeah, 16 properties, 28 units. Yeah, still a lot. Yeah.
But yes, we have been able to recycle that money over and over. So we have very little of our own capital actually in the company at the end of the day, which is it's a good thing to think about if you're brand new, that you don't need hundreds of $1,000s in the bank saved up to invest. You don't always need 20% down even. Whoops, Zoom is popping up something funny. Okay, sorry about that.
It's all good.
Yeah, but we were able to recycle that money probably 5 times over at this point.
That's incredible. Yeah, it just goes to show you, right, that people, for anyone listening that's just kind of starting out, like, you don't need that much money, right? Or you don't need like your own money, right? You need money to buy properties, but there's so many, creative ways that you can do it. Like, you guys are at 16 properties, 28 units, and essentially you've kind of used the same money that you started out with pretty much, right? That's just incredible. That's just incredible. So then the second property was a three property portfolio that you guys bought?
Yeah, it was a 3-pack for the second one. So it was a duplex and 2 more single family houses.
And you guys used the same strategy, the going through hard money. How much money do you have to put down for something like that?
So it really depends on the hard money lender. Some hard money lenders will do 80% of purchase price, some at period. Some will do 100% of purchase price. Some will do 80% with a rehab budget that they might finance for you. Some will even do 100% financing plus rehab costs. So now that I've been in for a little while, I've seen all over the board in terms of, how much they will finance. So our hard money lenders are anywhere from 80 to 100%. We don't typically finance our rehab costs.
Wow, that's really great. And again, it's building that reputation, right? It's like, that you don't start out like that, but you've got to do some deals. And once they know that you know what you're doing and they can trust you with their money, and then they're going to get it back.
The first deal was the first deal was 75%. And I really felt like I needed 80 in order to be comfortable and have enough in savings to make it work. And he said, nope, 75%, figure it out. And he hung up. And I did. We figured it out and we made it work. And now he finances 80% for us if we do use him still. So once you build that relationship, the door is really open in terms of what the terms can look like.
Yeah, you won him over. Yeah. So that three property portfolio, did those need a lot of work, or were they a similar situation where they were kind of more turnkey and you could just refinance?
2 of them were currently rented under market with some delayed maintenance. One of them needed a full rehab. So we closed on all 3 at the same time. One of the tenants left almost right away in the 3-pack. So we ended up having to renovate that one as well.
Okay. And then did you finance the renovation costs through a hard money lender, or did you guys have that money to do that?
So on the 3-pack, we actually had a partner who brought a HELOC into the company. So we used the money from his home equity line of credit to rehab that property. And then once it was rehabbed, we refinanced it and we were able to pay back his HELOC in full.
Okay. And then is he still partners on that deal, or did you pay him off and he's...
Nope, he's still a partner with us on the 3-pack, yeah.
Okay. So out of interest, how do you structure that?
So our partner he works full time, so he really doesn't have time to invest on his own in real estate. but he had, the HELOC that he wanted to put to use, and he wanted to invest in this specific market because he doesn't live here, but he knows the market well. So for him, it made sense to put his money to work with an operating partner, more or less, who could spend the time, do the rehab, screen the tenants, do the majority of the work, and then he could just reuse his money on another project over and over again. So that's the way we structure it with him. He's pretty hands off, but he can bring the capital into the company.
Yeah, that's a good fit for what you guys are doing, right? Because obviously you guys are active and you have no problem doing that. But if you can have someone that can help you with the capital side of stuff, that can help you grow, that's really interesting. You said obviously you guys are using more portfolio loans in terms of the lending side rather than traditional lenders, these big banks or whatnot. Is that because of flexibility and what they're able to do more than?
Yeah, it's because of just flexibility and property values, more or less, because a lot of our properties are in the sub $100,000 price point, and loan terms get a little bit tricky at that price point.
Yeah, banks want to, and lenders want to they want to loan more amount, right? They don't want to do smaller loans. They want to do bigger loans because it's essentially the same amount of work where they can make more money.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you haven't found a problem, because a lot of times with traditional financing as well, you get to the 10 limit, right? That people talk about, the 10 loans through Fannie and Freddie Mae. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, sorry, getting confused. But with that, per person, you're only allowed usually 10 loans. So is that how you financed all of them, through these portfolios, or have you done anything else?
So we've had to get a little bit creative. We do have some private lenders that are more towards their retirement age, and they wanted a stable investment. So they're not necessarily hard money lenders. They're just private people who want to put their money to work long term. They don't want their money going in and out of different investments. So they have invested in some of our longer term mortgages. So we have 20-year mortgages with them at a lower percentage versus a typical bank refinance that might be, not a lower percentage than our short-term loans. Mm-hmm. And they're higher than what a bank would be, but there's no fees on those loans as well. So that's worked for us on a lot of those. We group them together in, again, groups of, 3 to 5. And that's how we can kind of get around some of the limits. We also work with a lot of credit unions. So we have smaller local banks that will do loans on residential properties in a group as like a business loan, not a Fannie or Freddie mortgage.
The lending is such an important aspect of it, right? That's how you really grow, like leverage, right? If you have to buy everything cash, it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
How you I've never done a BRRRR myself, but I've spoken to plenty of people that have, and one of the things is making sure that you can get that refinance, right? How are you able to make sure? Because it's one thing to fix up a property and put that work and have a hard money loan, but you need to be able to make sure that you can refinance out of it. Because for one, you want to take your money back so you can do it again, but also you don't want to be stuck in a loan where you're paying 12%. So what are some things that you guys have learned and maybe have done to ensure that you're getting that cash out refinance, and and that it's getting to the point where you're getting that money out, right? It's one thing to get a refinance, but to have to leave a ton of money in the deal.
Yeah, you don't want to get stuck doing that, because that'll definitely slow you down. We're lucky enough to have access to the MLS since I have my license, so we can really pinpoint property values before we go into something. And then we have a rule as a company that we don't invest in anything more than 75% of the after repair value. So typically when you refinance, you can pull out 80% of the after repair value. So that leaves us with a 5% kind of buffer that once we pay the closing costs, holding costs, renovation costs, and purchase price, we're never invested more than 75% of that final value of the property.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Someone else mentioned that the other day, is that, if you can get an 80% LTV on your refinance, right, and you're all in for 80%, you're not taking out 80%, because then you've got to factor in, like you said, closing costs and other costs that come along with that. So you actually you end up having to leave some money in the deal. So that's a great point that I think people who want
to those hidden costs they never talk about on HGTV.
There is no hidden costs, right? They buy for 60 and they sell for 150, and then you take in the commissions, and that's it. There's no holding costs, there's no closing costs, right? Yeah.
Who pays taxes on their property?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. It's just pure profit. Yeah.
Right.
That's really interesting. But something else that is interesting to me is that you're blanketing these loans, right? You're doing 3, 4, 5 properties at a time. But how are you able to do that? Are you strategically buying 3 properties at a time, or do you buy one and then it might take 2 or 3 months to buy another, and then the 2 or 3, so then that you have a longer hold period on the first one? And like how that's interesting to me, because I haven't heard of that too much, because the holding costs can really hurt you on these properties with a high interest rate. So how are you able to figure that out to have so many properties that then refinance at the same time?
Yeah, so we are kind of strategic in the way we buy our properties. So we don't necessarily buy them together, but the way we track our private money is by due date. So it's by term, more or less. So some of our loans are 12 months, and at 12 months, you owe the entire balance of the mortgage. Some are 24 months, and some are 20 years. So those are the terms we have. So we prioritize our refinancing based on when the loan is due. So we have a tracker, and our properties all are in order of when the loan comes up due. So our priority in terms of refinancing is whichever property is due the soonest for that loan. So some of our lenders will lend on, we have some lenders that will do lower values individually, and we have some lenders that need more properties grouped together in one. So we prioritize our rehabs the same way. So if something is due soonest, it gets rehabbed first and it gets refinanced first.
Okay, yeah, that's smart. The why do some give you, is just a case of whatever hard money lender you can negotiate the 12 or the 24 months, is just whatever they're offering at the time?
Yeah, different lenders offer different terms. And then, some hard money lenders only have so much money that they're willing to lend out at a time. So if one of our lenders runs out of money that has, the best terms that we really, really like, we'll go to the next hard money lender until he's more liquid again and he's ready to come back in. We have one hard money lender that won't lend on anything that doesn't have a driveway. So in those cases, we can't use him. We have to use somebody else. Ideally, all of our loans would be, the 20-year term, and then we would have forever and ever to work on refinancing them, and there would be no time pressure. But time pressure is sometimes good because it helps you recycle that money faster as well. So it just depends on who's investing at the time, who's liquid, who's not, and that kind of plays into it.
Yeah, like you said there, if you don't have that time crunch, you won't be forced into action the same way, right? If you have to do something and something is due, it pushes you to do something a lot quicker.
Exactly. Yep.
Which probably isn't always good for your heart or for in terms of pressure, but that's cool as well. So you two have also, seems like created a lot of good relationships, right, with private money lenders, right? The difference between private money and hard money is hard money tends to be more people that are set up to do that, right? That's their profession, that's their job, that's what their company is set up to do. And a private money might be an aunt or an uncle or a friend or someone that that has some cash sitting around. How have you nurtured those private money relationships? How have you created them, and how have you found them, I guess, as well as another one? Because everybody wants private money, right?
Yeah. Yep. So we talk to everybody about real estate all the time. Everywhere we go, what are you guys up to? Oh, we're working on this house, or we're working on that house. And just never, we never discount somebody. Oh, I know they just graduated from college. They don't have any money to invest right now. It doesn't matter, because they might know someone that does, or they might be interested a few years down the line. You never know whose circumstances are going to change. We've been really surprised at some people who have ended up investing with us who we were not thinking that way at all about that conversation with them initially. So just kind of being very open-minded and being very proactive about touching base with our social circles frequently and systematizing that as well, and always talking about what we're doing and really looking at it as a win-win situation and as a beneficial offer to the person that you're getting the investment from. You're not asking people for money. We are offering them an investment that is at most times a much better rate than they can get in most other places. Yeah,
and I think that's huge, right? It's a change in mindset in terms of like, hey, I don't need your money, right? If you want to give it to me and we share in the benefits of real estate, right? I give you a great interest rate and I get to do what I want and buy more rental property, right? It's a win-win for everyone else, right? It's for everyone, sorry. And rather than thinking, hey, I'm trying to take this money from you, you know, it's giving that people, like you said, exactly that, the opportunity that to make more money, right? Invest in the stock market, or they have it sitting in the bank or in a CD, right? What are they making, right? They you know, they're not making 10, 12%, whatever it is, right?
Right.
So I think, yeah, that change in mindset is huge, because you don't want to be feeling like you taking money, right? And there's the good thing about it as well, once you get to your position as well, you've number of people that would be interested, right? So it's not like you need one person. If you don't want to give me your money, or it's not giving you money, that sounds bad. If you don't want to be involved, if you don't want to be involved in the project, that's okay. There's plenty of other people out there. Yeah,
it's not for you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's cool. Well, this is really cool. I love how you guys have grown so quickly. Like, it's just amazing. Like you said, you're going to look at 2 more properties tomorrow. Like, who knows by the end of the year how many more properties you have, and it's already December 18th. So I think that's awesome. But would you, like, thinking back to where you are now from where you started, would you have some suggestions for people? Like, people like, this story is awesome, right? I think hopefully it's going to inspire a lot of people, right? To kind of, you know, they might not get to 28 units by the end of their first year, but they might get to 4 or 5. What would you tell them, like, pieces of advice, both on the technical side of real estate, and also on the mindset side of real estate, you think?
Yeah, the mindset side, I know this is going to be cliche probably for anyone who's ever read a real estate book or listened to a podcast, but get out of the analysis paralysis. Just do something. Start somewhere. Keep reading your books. Keep listening to your podcast, but get out and talk to people. Analyze real deals in your market, and start creating action steps for yourself to just take it one step at a time. So my favorite, one of my favorite sayings is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So create that plan for yourself. Your next step is not find hard money. Your next step is call 5 hard money lenders. Or your next step is find 5 hard money lenders' phone numbers. And then the step after that is call 5 hard money lenders. So be specific in the beginning with exactly what you're going to do the very next day, and then hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. There is not, so I want to get a hard money loan. That doesn't help you, right? Mm-hmm. You want actionable steps, right? You want things that you can do, right? Because getting the loan is what you want to do, but to get there, right, what do you need to do? And I love that. Yeah, and that applies not just to hard money, it applies to, if you want to find a deal. Well, I want to find a deal. Okay, what does it take to find a deal? Connect with a great agent, find 5 wholesalers, right? And then call them. And like you said, those are actionable tips and that's where the money's at, I think, in figuring out actionable tips that you can move forward and do stuff that's going to push you forward towards you're trying to achieve. I think that's phenomenal. Well, this has been really cool. This has been such a fun interview. Really, like, what you've done and the success you've had is, I think, down to you as a person, I think, and your husband as well, right? I don't take away from him, but in terms of, it's just clear and evident to see that, you have a determination, you have a work ethic that, is just phenomenal, right? If nothing else, if you can have that work ethic and a determination, obviously you have skills as well, without a doubt, but just those things in itself, you can, that's a great thing about real estate, I think, is that if you're just willing to work hard, if nothing else, you're going to have success. Now, if you can learn skills along the way and be smarter and work right, it'll accelerate that. But if you're just willing to do what other people aren't, right, and I think that's another thing that shines through with what you've done. So I love that. I love your story. It's really cool. But this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate. So I'd like to ask some wrestling themed real estate questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, what would your wrestling name be?
Okay. So I think I would be Killer Kayla.
Okay. I like that. I'm kind of scared now. Killer Kayla. Who have you got to credit for that name?
My mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not the creative, fun one. So I called my mom and I said, help. She came up with it in 5 seconds. So I think it's great.
I like it too. Killer Kayla. Every wrestler has a special move, right? It's when they hit that move in the match is over because it's their biggest strength. What is your special move in real estate? What is your biggest strength?
So my special strength would be the wholesale sweep.
Okay.
So it's sort of like a leg sweep, where you get down low and then you buy all the wholesale properties.
Awesome. You're the one buying all the wholesale deals all the good ones in your area, I guess. Right? Yeah. That's awesome. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken?
Oh, So maybe the fourth or fifth house that we bought, we winterized it, we thought, because we were getting ready to do the rehab, but the heat wasn't working yet. And I had somebody over there cleaning it out. He was demoing it. And he called me like 5 times in a row when I was in a meeting, panicking. So I drive back over there and I see him collecting water in industrial sized trash cans in the kitchen on the first floor. It turns out the attic was full of water pipes. It had one point been a 3-family house, and we did not know that because the attic was boarded up. So we had not winterized the attic, and it flooded the entire house, and it caused so much damage. So that project got extended by a few months.
But it still worked out in the end?
It still worked out. It's fully rented now. It looks great. The tenants are happy. It was definitely a setback.
Yeah. But I guess, again, when you plan your numbers, you kind of have a little bit of a fudge factor in there as well, right? So that kind of gives you room for something like that. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
Oh, I kick myself for this one all the time. There were 2 properties that I was getting ready to buy, and I quit too soon calling the private money lenders. This was before my first deal. I quit too soon. I made a few phone calls, but I waited too long to make them, and the seller changed their mind and they kept them.
Oh, wow.
They kept them, and they still own them to this day, and they're now worth a lot more than they were when I was planning on buying them. Mm-hmm. And I think it made me work even harder on the next one. So, the way I kind of got down off the ropes maybe was just learning my lesson there and learning that opportunity doesn't sit around and wait for you. And on the next one, I moved a heck of a lot quicker.
Yeah, but sometimes that's what it takes, right? It's the hard lessons that really teach us, right? More than anything else. I feel like we've got to learn the lessons the hard way sometimes, I think. But obviously that then inspired you to do more, right? And I think going forward as well, right? I think now you probably don't hesitate at all because you probably maybe remember. Yeah. Get in. Yeah, cool. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Kayla. It's been killer, should I refer you? Kayla. But for anyone who's interested, and I think you have an awesome story, so I'm sure that plenty of people will be interested. If they want to hear more and if they want to reach out and get in touch with you, how can they do that?
The easiest way to find me is probably on Instagram. I'm that landlady on Instagram, and you can shoot me a message there, or you can Google our company. Our website is usually the first one to pop up. It's Gray with an E Capital Group, Gray Capital Group.
Gray Capital Group. Okay, cool. I'll put both those links in the description down below and the show notes for anyone who wants to do that. Well, Kayla, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. Really enjoyed that. It's inspiring, like what you've done, right? It's making me. No, it really is. It really is, and just like to achieve so much with and it goes to show you again, like you don't have to start with $10 million to be able to have a lot of success, right? You guys have grown a lot, and it takes hard work and effort and determination, no doubt. But don't let money be the reason that you don't start, right? I hear that all the time. I don't have money, and I think if you want to find a way, you can find a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Cool, awesome. Well, have an awesome rest of your day and enjoy your weekend.
Yes, you too. Thank you for having me.